Hello, it's Thursday. I had hoped to get a video out yesterday, but it didn't work out. So I'm in here today getting this one. Um, the Tomorrow's devotional is I'm not sure what will happen tomorrow. I got different things happening. I might get a devotional out, but it will be later in the day if I do, and if not, well, I'll aim for next Tuesday. But anyway, that's the way things are. So yesterday didn't happen. What today is going to happen. I'm just gonna do this a little earlier just to fit into my schedule for the day. But I guess my efforts to keep this consistent time thing just aren't always working out. But thank you for bearing with me. Most of you just watch it later anyway, so it works out. Anyway, we're going to look at Proverbs chapter 3, verse 13 and 14. We're focused on 13 today. The two verses go together, so we'll read them both. But we're going to focus on verse 13 for today. And it says this, Proverbs chapter 3, verse 13 says, "How blessed is the man who finds wisdom and the man who gains understanding. For her profit is better than the profit of silver, and her gain better than fine gold." So we'll focus on that second part another day, the profit of silver and the gain better than gold. But today we'll focus on that first part, which is how blessed is the man who finds wisdom and the man who gains understanding. So that word blessed, the word blessed is kind of like saying, it's sort of like saying, you're a happier person. Or it's like saying life is better. Life is better for the man who finds wisdom and the man who gains understanding. They live a blessed life, a good, better life than the guy who doesn't. So it's a contrasting idea here, is that, if you were to put two men together, one who lives in ignorance and one who has gained understanding, then the one who has gained understanding has it better than the one who lives in ignorance. And that's the idea behind that statement, how blessed is the man. So believe it or not everybody believes that. I mean, that might sound, if you're just listening to me and just not thinking it through or anything, you might go, oh yeah, well, that's obvious. But it's surprisingly not obvious to people. There's a lot of people who believe in the statement, ignorance is bliss. Now, we use the statement kind of as almost as a bit of a kind of like, wow, yeah, ignorance is bliss kind of thing. But people do, there's a lot of people who do believe that. I'd rather not know. Not knowing is better. That somehow you're more blessed in life. You don't know things. You don't understand things. You don't have wisdom. And so that's kind of often a counterpoint. It's a bit of a mistaken one because it's the wrong comparison. Ignorance is not the opposite of wisdom, but we kind of live that way. So let's explore our 4 questions and try and expand this idea, because some people believe that the benefit of ignorance is better. So question 1, isn't it actually happier? Isn't ignorance actually a happier thing than the burden of knowledge? So that's the question that sometimes isn't always asked that way, but that people sometimes have in their mind is, isn't ignorance actually more blessed than knowing something? And so the answer to that is yes, it is in some ways. Some ways it certainly is more happy to not know than to know. So for instance, ignorance can help prevent anxiety in life. Not knowing something can help you not worry about it. So, I could go through life not knowing that I have some terrible disease until it's too late, and then the disease takes over, and then I'm going to die, and there's nothing I can do about it. I mean, that could be the outcome of that, and I could be very happy up till that point. But then when the knowledge is forced on me, because that's what life does, it's too late. So in a sense, yeah, ignorance can be better because it can prevent anxiety, not knowing. But there's a cost to that. And ultimately, is it better? I don't know. I don't think it is necessarily. And ignorance can also help prevent guilt. We can have this sense of liberty because we don't know all the people whose lives we've wrecked. We can go through life doing things and never feel bad because, yeah, we hurt that person or we ruined that person's day or whatever, and we don't feel bad about it because we don't know. And so we can go through with the bliss of ignorance, not feeling any guilt, right? So not knowing that something is right or wrong. We can be happy just doing whatever because we don't know. So in that sense, once again, ignorance can be bliss. It can be happier than the burden of knowledge. But of course, that means you can't reconcile or fix or prevent yourself from harming all those people or from doing bad things that are evil. You won't know that you're doing evil, but you'll do it. And so there's a cost. You may be happier for a time, but there's a cost. And it's a bit of a mistake for us to think that happier means better. There are times you can be happy, but your life is worse. You ever hear the saying, oh, that guy, he's never happy until he's unhappy, until he's mad, right? Or until something's wrong. Because that's a funny thing. We can find a strange sort of happiness in their messes, but they're messes. It's dystopic or it's dysfunctional. And so we need to be careful of accidentally attributing blessing to the idea of happiness. Happiness, of course, is a goal. We all want it. But sometimes it's more blessed to actually not be happy for a time, and then have an eternal happiness that follows, rather than being happy for a time and having an eternal misery that follows. So that's kind of the idea there. But then there's another problem here too. Ignorance may make you happier in the short term, but you don't get to enjoy the great joy that comes from discovering new things, because that would ruin your ignorance if you discover something new, if you know, right? So living with the little bit of knowledge you have in your blinders means you never get to see the wider world. And so even though that's not necessarily awful, it's a lack of the fullness of joy you can get from learning new things and from the complexity of things if you only ever see the simple. So there's a value in growing knowledge too. But once again, it's a mistake to think that the opposite of wisdom or the opposite of ignorance is wisdom. It's not. The opposite of ignorance is knowledge. Wisdom is what we're talking about here. So question 2, does the burden of knowledge ever outweigh the bliss of ignorance? Like, is there ever a time when ignorance is just okay and that the burden of knowledge is just too big of a thing, we don't need it? And to that I would say yes, there are some times, there's some things that you don't ever need to know. It won't make your life better knowing it. And so that's, sure, there's those things. There's an old saying, 2 things you don't want to know how they're made, sausages and laws. It's kind of a funny little joke. No one wants to know how sausages are made. We just eat them. They taste delicious. And then, laws, well, we don't want to know how they're made. Just nice to have them in society. But is that really true? Do you not want to know how they're made? Or would you at least like to know that the person who's making them knows what they're doing? Or would you rather just like the old muckrakers of the early 1900s who discovered that sausages were made by sweeping all the stuff off the meat factory floor at the end of the day and putting it into a grinder? Every little bit of sawdust and every little mouse and every little dropping that was on the floor went into the sausage. And when they discovered that, well, once again, ignorance wasn't as blissful as everybody thought. But there are some things, there's sometimes some things that we don't need to know, and it's better, right? You don't need to know everybody's little dirty secret. You don't need to know what somebody's past was like, or that's not stuff we need to know. So yeah, in that case. But remember, this proverb is talking about wisdom, not just knowledge. Some knowledge we don't need to know, but wisdom and understanding are a blessing, and a person who has those things, their lives are better. Question 3. As you grow in wisdom, do you lose wonder? And so that's the idea of the loss of innocence, as we say, right? Because we often associate innocence with ignorance, and we often associate wisdom with knowledge. And so is there a loss of the wonder that comes with innocence and ignorance as you grow in wisdom and understanding? And I would say yes, there is a loss of wonder, but there's a but there. The thing is, though, and I've experienced this in my own life. I can remember the day that I realized that it came to me, that the wonder I had as a child looking at the world is gone. I used to have that. I had it for a long time in my life, and then it was gone. Things happened. I went through traumatic things, and stuff happened, and I lost that sense of wonder when I looked at the world. And I mourned that. I missed that, and you wonder, like, Was that necessary or not? Did that happen because now I know things through life experience and difficulties? And it can seem like that the loss of wonder it's not worth it to lose that wonder. It's not worth it to gain understanding or knowledge or experience or whatever. Especially if you've had a trauma or something difficult in your life, that can really feel that way. But what you get in place of wonder is awe. As you learn what the world is like, or as you learn how things work, or as you learn wisdom and being able to understand what to do with a situation or whatever, you gain awe as you realize the beauty and the wonder of the thing. So there's a wonder of, you can look at a rainbow and go, and the wonder of the mystery. It's so awesome. And the beauty of the mystery. There's a rainbow. And it's really cool. And you can imagine a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow and a leprechaun and all that stuff. And you can imagine things, and it's wondrous. And then as you grow older and you learn that a rainbow is caused by sunlight going through raindrops, and that the angle and the dividing of the light wave and so on, all the stuff that happens, and we can now know what makes a rainbow. And to some degree, you lose the wonder of the pot of gold and the chase of the leprechaun. But you can gain an awe in the neat and how that works, and that God made a world that can split light in the air like that. It's just really cool. And so then you lose wonder, but you gain awe, right? So it's not a complete loss. But let's go to question 4. How can I preserve the wonder of mystery and yet gain the blessing of understanding? Is there a way to get both? And I think it can be tricky for us in this fallen world to master that. But it is possible. I do think it's possible. And one of the ways we do that is to look to God for wonder rather than to fairy tales. We create wonder in our world by creating stories of leprechauns and pots of gold, and by creating stories about superheroes and science fiction and a future that we can imagine with spaceships and whatever else. And we create all these stories, and we like them because of the wonder, the mystery in those things we don't understand yet, and look to a future of science fiction or to a past of fantasy, and the wonder of not knowing how magic works, or how a transporter device works or whatever. And we look for wonder in those stories. And okay, fair enough. But if you look to God, a real person, you look to the God of the universe for wonder, and realize we will never fully understand God. We can live with him for eternity, and we'll never fully understand him all, because there's always going to be a mystery to God to some degree. And you can look to God for that wonder and realize, man, there's so much more to him. Even though I've known him all my life, there's so much more to him. And the wonder of the mystery of God is actually a very beautiful thing. And for those of you who've never experienced that, I guess you'll have to take my word for it. I may have lost the wonder of the rainbow in my own life, but I've gained the wonder of God. So you can keep the wonder, but at the same time have the awe as I learn more and gain wisdom and understanding of what God has done in the universe. I become more and more awed by him. Wow, he's so amazing. And so the wonder and the awe together in God. And so you can really say, blessed is the life of a man, like blessed is the man who gains wisdom and understanding, because I now understand also where to put my wonder. And so the ignorance isn't necessary. Anyway, some food for thought today. In your life, what do? Do you pursue ignorance so that you can just be happy and bliss, or do you pursue understanding so you can have joy from that, and which is, I think, better, as this proverb is saying. So God bless your day. Lord, help us to pursue wisdom and understanding, and understand its value. In Jesus' name, amen. Hopefully tomorrow sometime we'll get one in. Otherwise, we'll aim at Tuesday, and we'll go on to the next verse. Have a great day.